The critique of Rory Stewart's sartorial choice on Twitter, likening him to a U-boat captain or a schoolboy in oversized attire, something that he borrowed from his father, highlights the fickle nature of public opinion or appearance, which is based on a rather a rather superficial range of references. But it's Alastair Campbell whose wardrobe misstep, specifically his ill-fitting waistcoat, deserves correction, and that's not really his fault. That's the fault of his tailor, a person I know. And regardless of style or colour, proper fit is essential for a polished look, and Alastair Campbell fails. And it's got nothing to do with the colour. It's got nothing to do with the. Somebody pointed out rather waggishly that I was colourblind in the choice of what I wear. The reality is, I think that any colour can be made to work, but I would be more cautious about ensuring that things were fitting, and sometimes things don't fit, in which case you change, or you go and see somebody who can modify the clothing, or you do it yourself. Get out the sewing machine, and sort that out. I spent a lot of my life making costumes for opera and ballet and theatre, and these days I find it quite hard. But still, every so often I get the sewing machine out and I run something up and I think, okay, that's all about right. There are bits which I find really difficult. Buttonholes, I sort of despair these days, and I've got too much really to do to sort of try and get the arms right and the shoulders. Shoulders are difficult. Buttonholes are difficult, and I understand why it's important to talk to somebody who is a professional. The professional tailors. I had a wonderful suit made for me as a present after I left the circle, and it's a beautiful piece of craftsmanship. And Caroline, who made it, is one of the Savile Row tailors. I think she was one of the first women to qualify, and the mastery. Once you see the mastery of somebody who can do it properly, you know what is right. And the same thing is true, really, of Alastair Campbell and Rory Stewart in their political discourse. Once you see someone who can do it right, you just sort of stand back and you think, this is what it is. And in his piece for, I don't know if you've come across this, but Alastair Campbell writes the most brilliant diary every week in the New European, and it's well worth reading. In his piece today, Campbell reflects on Rishi Sunak's resignation speech and the election night spent with Liz Truss and Rory Stewart, and it's refreshing when political figures, including Sunak, Mordaunt, Hunt, Rees-Mogg, all manage to convey humanity in their exit. Though it's important to remember their actions, and it's important to remember how things are progressing. So at the moment, there's a big question about prison reform and the shift away from the punitive lock 'em up and throw away the key thing. That's crucial. And James Timpson's argument that a third of prisoners should not be incarcerated highlights the potential for significant savings and better resource allocation. And with the prison population now overflowing at 90,000 and the cost per prisoner at £1,000 per week, reallocating funds towards education and rehabilitation could save £1 billion annually. I'm ranting about that. I think prison reform is absolutely essential, and I think any government who's planning it should talk to those people who have been in government, who've been in prison as well. People like Lord Archer. He must have insight. He must have understanding. People should read his diary, his prison diary. and he's not the only one. There are others, but people who understand political discourse and have had experience of prison should be in number 10 talking about how improvements can be made. And that brings me back to Liz Truss and to Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak. And indeed, this thing of the of Rory Stewart's costume U-boat or cheeky sixth former wearing his father's hand-me-down. But the Sunak's resignation speech was astonishing, and Alastair Campbell is gracious in recognizing that. I thought he spoke well, he says. His kind words about Keir Starmer, an important part of the seamless transition of power, which stood in such contrast to the Trumpian nightmare which accompanied my last self-enforced sleepless night. And then he goes on to talk about the experience of Nadine Dorries, and he says, would she ever have been a cabinet minister? Would she ever have been a cabinet minister in any other government except for one led by Boris? Rory asked her how Johnson's brothers also managed to get into the cabinet and spluttered into his green tea that was keeping him going. And just a beautiful line. And and then he Rory's Alastair Campbell talks about Johnson's lies and the fact that Nadine Dorries simply refused to believe that he had ever lied, and her assumption that because he had won an election in 2019, he would have done so again now. No wonder we live no wonder a member of the live audience called her deluded. Absolutely. And and then he says that he said to her, and once she had responded to my plea that you really do need to get over Boris Johnson, with the accusation that this was a sexist remark. The task of dealing with her, not letting her wind him up, became easier. There comes a point, he says, where you just stop taking unserious people seriously at all, and you move on. And it's such a good observation, because more damage can be done if you let them do it by twits than by seriously evil individuals. There are a few seriously evil individuals in the world. I've occasionally called one or two of them out, Putin being one who has crossed the red line from stupidity to evil. Though in Putin's case, I don't think he was wholly stupid. Nadine Dorries, I don't think she's evil at all. In many ways, I think she's quite sweet, but utterly deluded. And the damage she has done, particularly to media when she could have done some good. This is the point. It's not simply that somebody doesn't do good. It's that if they are in power, nobody else who could do good can replace them. Nobody else can fill in that time, because you've got somebody occupying the space and doing nothing of value. And that is why Nadine Dorries is such a shameful individual. Not because she was particularly vengeful or particularly aggressive in whatever she tried to do. I don't think she could be aggressive with a toothbrush. But she was monumentally stupid and managed nothing at a time when so much needed to change. And she was followed by two other individuals, Lucy Fraser and Michelle Donnellan, who equally just held on, as if the Department of Digital Culture, Media and Sport was simply a sinecure. simply a footstone, a stairway to better and bigger ministerial power. Nobody really cares. That was the approach certainly taken by Oliver Dowden, and possibly by Matt Hancock, and possibly by Sajid Javid. So many people were in that job, and so many people were utterly and completely useless. As for Nadine Dorries, her unwavering loyalty to Boris, her incredulity at his dishonesty, her deep-seated partisanship, and the live audience's reaction on election night, absolutely right. And as for the claim of sexism in response to criticism, that only underscores the stupidity and the yah-boo response to somebody who has lost all other arguments because, frankly, she's not able to follow a coherent argument. It's a shame because her writing is brilliant, actually, in what it tries to do. And again, I recommend, if you haven't read it, read the plot, because it's a page-turner. It's hilarious. Is it truth? Is it a historical document? No, it's pure fantasy, and perfectly good for that.